Hello, everybody, and welcome to Whispers Radio here on AM 1600, WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. It is 6:08 p.m. and 76 degrees here in downtown Wheeling. I'm Jordan Klein. He's Nick Queen. She is the lovely Lola Miller. Oh.
You forgot somebody.
And joining us today also is Mr. Brandon Palmer.
Hey, everybody.
Say hi, Brandon.
Hey.
Wow. Loud.
You okay now?
Okay, let me see. There we go.
Were those the ones Steve was using?
Yes.
Man.
I know. Everybody here is deaf at me and Sherry. We're the only ones that keep it at a reasonable level. Good afternoon, everyone.
Ugh.
You look relaxed.
We shall see. I'll probably be pulling my hair out in about 10 minutes, but
You.
I
think
know.
my hair's already fallen out.
That's why you're behind there.
Give us a call, 304-214-1600. If you're out of the area, 1-866-514-1600. That's toll free. We'd love to hear from you. I'm glad to be back. I like being here.
You're never tan. That's what I don't get. You go to the beach, you go to the beach, you go to the beach, and you never come back tan.
What the heck's wrong with me?
I know it. Are you using like a 30 sunscreen?
No,
or
I
are
go
you a
out
hermit and
and-
you just like stay in a cave or something?
No, and like when I left, I was red. Like I was very red.
You're not even red now.
I know.
I know.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
I don't either. Brandon came back from Virginia Beach. He had a nice tan. I was down at my beach on the island, and I had a nice tan.
Well, see, here's the thing.
You
like,
go to the Carolinas, and you come back no tan.
It must be that different.
but how many?
That's it. That's it.
Here's the thing though. I'm just so pale that my tan. Like, okay, Lola, ready for this?
Oh my God, you're right. I take all this
That's that
tan
farmer.
talk back.
Right, farmer tan.
I am literally so pale that my tan looks pale.
You glow in the dark. You glow in the dark.
I am see-through.
You wait till I come back from Key West. Key West.
Oh, that's going to be...
I will be so dark. Although I just found out it's the rainy season. So I pulled up like the 10-day forecast. I have to wait until October 1st anyway. But I thought, well, I'm just going to see what the next 10 days are. 9 out of 10. Isolated or scattered thunderstorms. Only one day has a big bright sun.
Is there any like hurricane coming through? Are you going to get hit?
I don't know, but we're taking trip insurance out because if you're in the Keys and a Category 1 comes, you get evacuated immediately if you're a tourist. And then the next people are people that are renting condos and things like that, private homes, but you're staying in. Then they get evacuated, and finally the residents. But it's got to be like a Category 3 or more for the residents to be evacuated.
Yeah, see, that's one of the reasons I went down to North Carolina. Nick and I's grandma lives down there. And I guess when the hurricane came, she got evacuated. Like, it didn't end up hitting, but she had to get everything ready for... hurricane season, so that was my big old project.
Hurricane season should be winding down.
Well, there was that other big hurricane supposed to hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hit the peak season already, I think.
Igor.
Yeah. Well, they said because
Igor.
This is why the internet is a dangerous, dangerous tool in uninformed hands. I get on there and it's like, oh yeah, hurricane season ends at the beginning of October, but in Florida, it's usually worse in August, September, and I'm thinking, well, and then it says in big letters, and remember, Mother Nature has no calendar. Oh, thank you for that. So we shall see. But, yeah, I'm taking trip insurance out because it'd be my luck, that I get down there 2 days into it. Okay, everybody.
Out.
Yep. So, yeah.
But, see, then you could go to New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah.
And
I could see Joe.
go see Joe.
Yeah.
Go get abducted.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Been watching too much True Blood.
Yeah?
Love that shit.
I've never seen it.
Oh, my gosh. And this season, werewolves. Oh, in this werewolf, how do they pronounce it? Alcide, I think. Oh, yeah. He can come bite my neck any day.
Speaking of
Wow.
Speaking of fellas hitting on you. I have.
You think you're so amusing with this.
I enjoy myself a lot.
I know you do. You have too much time on your hands.
Nick and I spent like 20 minutes searching down this episode and cutting this out just for you. So, for everybody's enjoyment, let's hear how Riley likes Lola.
I want to say to you, my darling Lola.
Yes?
Even though I have jumped to the light factor out across the voids of space and had the ignominious pleasure of having touched tenderly a number of hybrid women, I have found nothing out there nor seen anything in the cosmos that would move me like you, my darling.
That guy is so full of crap. It's coming out his ears.
I sat down. Here was the first thing, right? Nick and I sat and tried to auto-tune it to make it sound really funny, put some music behind it. But like his voice is so like monotone and gruff that it does absolutely nothing.
Yeah. I've got the perfect song to go behind it, but I am not giving it to you.
Please.
Forget it. And by the, you know what I did is spent too much time going through all of the show notes that are up on the website, looking desperately for that guy that we interviewed in Savannah.
It's on that episode.
It is on Riley?
Yeah, because I was talking to him
January 11th.
Andre Fertino.
Well, we're not going to Savannah anyway now. But
that's sad.
Hey, you never know. You could get hurricaned out.
Quiet.
Well, I'm just saying. You brought it up.
With our first guest, I should
Thanks,
ask
Dr.
her to
Doom.
put like a spell on the weather for down there, that it will be perfect the whole
was
time I'm
asking
gone.
about
She was asking about some spells and stuff like that. You might want to talk
Well,
to her.
I told Piston he needs to be listening now, because at the beginning of, or at the end of last week, he was bemoaning the fact that he has had such terrible luck of late.
Yeah.
And so John put a call out to anybody that could possibly either like exercise the bad juju that's on him or put a spell on him so that his luck would change. Well, my sister a long time ago was actually a white witch in training. So I told Piston, well, I went home and I told Linda, I said, I got a job for you. He might even pay you if it works.
Get rid of the bad juju.
She was not happy with me, but you know, witch, bitch. Well, I mean, you know, whatever,
I hope she's
whatever.
not listening.
No, she never does. Whatever consonant is in front, you know, that's my sister. But.
Gosh.
So this woman, I told Piston, I said, you need to listen at 6 o'clock because she really could perhaps turn his luck around.
You never know.
Yeah, she was talking about spells and we was talking to her on the phone.
You were talking to her too?
Jordan was talking to her.
Oh, you were just eavesdropping.
I was eavesdropping,
I can
yes.
see.
Well, she said, should I have anything prepared, like details of my spells? I was like, I know the kind of people that listen to this show. I don't know if you want to have that ready. Maybe we can skip some steps.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to get her on the phone.
Alrighty. Well, I have some bad news.
Oh,
real
no.
quick. It's not recording.
On
It
my
stopped
shit?
recording
Mine or
for some
yours?
reason. On yours.
Oh.
So mine's fine. Yeah, it's a Windows. Recording fine.
You're as bad as my dad. My dad got a Droid and I got the iPhone, and it like every time I could sit down and eat dinner, and he's like, "So, does your phone do this? Because mine does." It's like a total competition.
See, I'm not exactly sure why it stopped working, and because like I just now had it recording, and then all of a sudden it just stopped.
Well, you were fiddling with some wires there, bro.
Well, if we're talking about phones,
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking about getting my nephew got a Droid.
Mm-hmm.
Are all the apps? I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's a Droid or iPhone or
A lot
whatever.
of them are really similar. Some of them don't compute back and forth.
All right,
but
does iPhone have the Kindle Droid? Kindle.
They both
app.
have the Kindle app.
Okay.
So
Well, because I'm thinking, but I didn't. You know, I'm still stuck with AT&T, so
and I
that
was-
means I have to go iPhone, right?
yeah,
unless you want to switch.
I'm not buying out a contract. They get enough of my money anyway.
That's I hear you.
Shoo-wee.
All right, Nikki, you want to introduce the guest?
I can do that.
Maybe.
Sorry,
Doom, doom, doom,
Dum, dum, dum.
you guys are about done.
Da-dum-bum.
All right, Judika Isles is an independent scholar, educator, and author of don't even know why they're laughing anymore. Of several books of folklore, folkways, mythology about the subjects of magic, the occult, divination, diverse spiritual traditions, witchcraft, and the paranormal. We'll be talking about our new book, The Wiser Field Guide to Witches. Judika, you there?
Oh, you got it. Wait.
I'm sorry, Judika. I know
She's
you're probably
somewhere.
hear us. We're training somebody new to do this, which is Jordan, so it's taking a while.
Judika,
Hi.
There
how
she
you
is.
go? How's it going?
He'll get it before the end of the show, we hope.
I'm trying to do something new here.
Yes, and
It's interesting.
yes, it is. He's trying to do my job badly.
Is there
Well,
any way we can
I'm
turn
not
her-
trying to do it badly. I'm succeeding in that.
Okay.
So, Judika, I know Jordan's been looking at the book, and then he's finally, Nick, I'm going to take this book. Is it okay if I take this home now? So he is enthralled. I'm not exactly sure if you did that or not. I mean,
yes,
because
You put a spell on me.
Now, see what we're going to have to deal with: bad singing along with everything
Oh,
else.
screaming Jay Hawkins. Recognize it right away.
So tell us about your book. What made you want to write this book?
Oh, since I was like 3 years old, and they asked me, "What do you want to be for Halloween?" and I said I wanted to be a witch. I've just been in love with witches, passionate about witches ever since. And Wiser Books has this great field guide series. They have a field guide to vampires, a field guide to ghosts, and they asked me, would I like to write their field guide to witches, and would I ever? I had so much. I think this is the book I had the most fun writing. I have a number of books, but this was so much fun, and it's just it's a field guide to identifying different kinds of witches, and even to identifying whether you might be a witch.
What?
Yeah.
No, I was reading on Aleister Crowley. He's always been a figure of interest, I guess.
Yeah.
Not that I'm a follower or anything crazy like that. Oh, I mean, I don't want to say that and offend you, but if you are.
No, but I know, but many people are.
He's an interesting
He
character.
is a very interesting person, and the name is Crowley to rhyme with holy, as he would tell you.
Oh.
He's a very interesting person and an excellent author. I think a lot of people talk about him without really being familiar with who he is, but he has a number of books, and he's very easy to read, actually. He was a great writer, very he's not a hard author to read. As some people write books and they want to show you how smart they are, but he is very lucid, very clear. You can get his books. His books most of them are still in print. You can find a bunch of them online. A very interesting man, very controversial person. He would be very disappointed if we didn't tell people that he was considered the wickedest man of his generation. It was something he was very proud of. There are a number of
Yeah, he
great...
claimed to be the Beast 666.
He was the beast.
He was.
Do you know where that comes from? Initially, he came from a very, very conservatively religious home. His father was a preacher of the Plymouth Brethren in England. It's very, very conservative Christian sect. Basically, they are the only Christians, and his family came from the most conservative branch, and he preached as a child. It came from a wealthy family. His father was a brewer. His father died when Alistair was quite young, and Alistair inherited a lot of money and was independently wealthy, which enabled him to travel and do pretty much whatever he wanted. And
I think that's where the fall comes in with most people. They just have so much money that they just lose grip with reality.
He did what he wanted. We're on the radio, and I can't say what kind of money he had, but he had the kind of money where you can do what you want and not care what other people think about you. And he traveled the world, and he had many. He was a mountain climber and a poet, and he had very interesting spiritual experiences.
Now, is it true? Because I read on this once. I didn't read it from your book, but he only allowed backwards talking in his house. Is that?
No, I don't think so.
See, because I heard that. I read that somewhere.
He
It was
likes
online. I
people
really figured it was true.
He's a very erudite man, and he corresponded with a lot of people. There's a lot of correspondence. He has a great paper trail he eventually swung the other way, and the story is that his mother walked in on him as a young boy in, the midst of an act where you would not want your mother walking in on you, and she was appalled and at that point, described him as the beast, and, you are the beast out of the book of Revelation, and he claimed it. He was, said, fine, I am.
So at that young of an age, he just said, you know what, I'm going to be evil.
Yeah. But I don't think that he necessarily, I don't know that he perceived it as evil.
Now, if he says that he's the most wicked man on the world,
yeah.
Come on now.
Well, there's a difference between
Between wicked and evil.
Yeah, there is a difference between wicked and evil. I mean, Wicked, you've got that Broadway musical, Wicked.
Yeah.
The Wicked Witch of the West.
Wow.
And is she? Are you a good witch or are you a bad witch? Yeah, I mean, people talk about him as the wickedest man on earth, but, he was not a mass murderer. If you want to compare him, there are quite a few people I would put way, above him,
Yeah, I would too. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer comes to mind immediately.
Yeah, dozens.
But Wicked almost has a,
mischievous.
Yes, yeah.
He was a challenging person. He liked to challenge social conventions. He liked to challenge religious conventions. He was not a Satanist. And that surprised people assumed that he was a Satanist, but he was not a Satanist. He founded his own religion.
Wow.
And he was not particularly interested in the Satanism in terms of being an inversion of Christianity, the Antichrist.
Yeah.
I mean, he sometimes would call himself, I think, the Antichrist, but not in the sense of being Satan. He had his own. He was very. You may disagree with him, or you may, and he has many qualities about him. He was not necessarily an admirable person. He had a lot of money, but welched on a lot of debts with people who had, less money than he did. There are some biographies about him. He was not particularly nice to his ex-wives. Didn't really like paying child support.
You're not making this guy sound very good.
No, I mean,
he wasn't evil, but he was really wicked, and he hated people, and he said he was the Antichrist, and he really was mean to his ex-wives.
On Wikipedia, and it says he was a hedonist, bisexual, recreation, drug experimenter, and a social critic.
Yes, he was.
And he was just in revolt, this quote unquote, was in revolt against the moral and religious values of his time.
But if you are an occultist, and if you study the history of esoterica, whether you are a practitioner or a student or an observer, he is a very significant person. And he was brilliant, and he was challenging, and
he was cute.
Yeah, he was. Especially
I'm looking at his picture here. He was cute.
And he was dynamic and charismatic.
He was on a Beatles cover.
Yes, Sgt. Pepper.
Well, it was like, I could have been an ex-wife.
I would have stepped in.
I hope
I don't think he was the cowboy boots kind of girl. Guy.
And if a lot of those people today, if you want to make your mark, what do? You go to the extreme. Did he really believe this kind of everything? No, but to put it out there in everybody's face certainly made him a name. And
kind of like Marilyn Manson.
Yeah, I guess you could compare him to Marilyn Manson, but yeah.
Or Lady Gaga.
There you go. At least he's not wearing meat. Seriously.
Now, how about his idea of thelema? Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people. I've heard that a lot on.
Sure.
Can you
kind of? Thelema is he came from a much more intellectual time.
Mm-hmm.
Thelema is actually the quote is from Rob Bellay, the French author. It's very esoteric. There are. I'm actually working on a book of saints right now. That is my next project. It's a large encyclopedia of saints, and there are also, the Thelema also has saints, and some of which will be included in my book. It's a religion, and it is. It's very difficult to discuss religion because, the people who follow a religion see the positive aspects.
Now, is there still a lot of adherence to this
Sure, and
faith?
more. I think probably more and more all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and just kind of, because I don't want to make this entire show about
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Crowley
Aleister
hour.
Crowley. Yeah, the Crowley hour.
It would make him happy, though.
It would make him
It
happy.
would make him happy.
We'll make his ex-wives happy. We'll switch the subject. At the beginning of the book, I got really interested into, because a lot of people, when you think of witch, first and foremost they think of pointy hat, warts,
Yeah,
broom,
green face.
and in the beginning of the book, you go through the types of witches,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of these, and I've heard of kitchen witchery,
Mm-hmm.
the traditional witchcraft, and of course Wicca, which I think everybody. But there's a lot of these in here. I've never even would have, such as Dianic,
Yes.
fairy witchcraft.
Yeah. There's a lot of witches
Yeah.
out there. A lot of different kinds of witches. And if you read a book and it doesn't suit you, you can make up. You
can make up
follow
your own witchcraft.
path. Yeah, but they're all people. People create paths. And so, if none of the paths that are out there are working for you, maybe there's a new one. Maybe you're a visionary. Look at Crowley. Crowley forged a path that didn't exist. And maybe there are more paths out there. There are a lot of ways to be a witch. There's not just one. And there are books that may tell you otherwise, but they're not telling you the truth.
So, which one of these would you consider, something that no one here has heard of and would be the most interesting?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't know what other people haven't heard of.
Harry Potter.
I think, I find the chaos magic really interesting.
Well, let's talk about that because that sounds interesting.
Chaos magic is, here, you know what, I'll read you an excerpt from the book then.
Okay,
It's
great. Go
easier.
ahead.
There is no one specific school of chaos magic, nor do its practitioners adhere to one specific philosophy or spiritual tradition. Instead, those who define themselves as chaos magicians share a certain attitude toward magic. Chaos magic is defined as a primal creative force in the universe. And the most famous chaos magician is an artist named Austin Osman Spare, who is just, he was a visual artist, and you can get his books. Really, really fascinating stuff. And a lot of room for intelligent people to create a path for themselves. It's very 21st century. It's very almost kind of quantum physics like.
It sounds very primal to some degree.
It's a combination of being really primal and really advanced.
Okay.
So it's that the Venn diagram. It's where those two things meet.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, what would be like a practical, I guess,
Very
use of it?
philosophical. The most practical, in terms of being really practical, would be, I would say, the hedge witches and the kitchen witches.
Okay.
In terms of being practical, that's really the orientation of folk magic, because folk magic and hoodoo. I was talking to someone last night. Hoodoo has really had this amazing resurgence. Hoodoo is North American folk magic. It is based on the traditions that came over with enslaved people who came from the Congo. It's based on Congolese traditions. But when they got to North America, and mainly the southern United States, what is now the southern United States, they encountered Native Americans who taught them to work with the plants that were here, because they had the philosophy from Africa, but they lacked the material. They left that behind.
Uh-huh.
So the Native Americans taught them, well, here's what we have. And so they incorporated the native botanica, the native fauna and flora, into their practices. And then they were encountering European folk magic, a lot of English and Scottish and French folk magic. And it all blended together to form this really uniquely melting pot magic, American magic, which is known as hoodoo, which is now practiced all over the world. And it used to be very, very disrespected. People thought this was just, nonsense or superstition, or it used to be called low magic. Practical magic tends to be for practical purposes, for obtaining money, for obtaining work, for making sure your boss is nice to you.
Well, like, can chaos magic
is much more intellectual.
Well, can it be practical though? That's
chaos magic has no boundaries.
okay.
Chaos magic has no boundaries. It can be used for anything. There has always been traditionally this split between high magic and what was called low magic, with high magic being ceremonial magic.
Mm-hmm.
The grimoires that you see in movies, where you open the book, the devil will come.
Like the Necronomicon, I guess.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I have to get to that eventually, but
exactly. The high magic has been very male-oriented, and it's been oriented towards spirit summoning, very erudite, esoteric, and there's always been a sort of a tendency to look down on the practical magic. People who had the income to lock themselves in rooms for months and conjure up spirits,
mm-hmm.
as opposed to people who, just wanted a boyfriend.
No.
Hedge witchery, but kitchen witchery, that's the real practical stuff.
And it always seemed to me like it was kind of the workaday kind of magic. It's, you would have, like maybe your doctors and stuff, level.
There's a lot of healing.
Yeah. Oh, in like the practical magic, like the kitchen and such.
I have a really large book called The Encyclopedia of 5,000 Spells.
Uh-huh.
And there are 5,000 spells in there for various purposes. And the impetus for writing that book, I used to teach in New York City at the Learning Annex. And I would teach people to make magical oils and potions and powders. And would have these great classes. And then after it was over, people would come up to me and start asking me questions. The real reason they were there is that they had some sort of an ailment, or a loved one had some sort of an ailment, or they couldn't get pregnant, or there was some sort of a physical issue that they had gone to all these doctors, and there was no medical solution for them. The doctors had thrown up their hands, or there was some sort of condition that couldn't be diagnosed. There was, and what could we do magically? And at that point, I didn't know. And I was very frustrated. People would ask me these questions, and they were very heartfelt, and I, felt very inadequate because I didn't have an answer for them. And I started researching and finding these spells, and that ended up being sort of the seed that the large spell book came out of.
Mm-hmm.
But that has always been a very traditional use. And back in the day, there was very little separation in some communities between witches and healers.
What?
People who healed in Europe in the 17th century and the 16th century were often perceived, especially women, were perceived as being witches. Not just the people who failed to heal, but the people who were accomplished healers. It was perceived that if they could heal, then even if they were doing good, they must be in the service of evil spirits.
Oh, wow. That music means we got to take a break real quick. If you want to hold on for us just for a couple minutes. We will be right back. You're listening to Whispers Radio here on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog.
Medicare beneficiaries, would you like a local health plan that is easy to understand and gives you the coverage you need? Health Plan Secure Care and Secure Choice offers you direct access to the health services you need. With Health Plan Secure Care and Secure Choice, you get the health coverage you need and the peace of mind you want. For information on Health Plan Secure Care and Secure Choice, call 1-877-847-7915. The Health Plan, here for you, in your hometown, since 1979.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Whispers Radio here on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. I'm Jordan Klein. He's Nick Queen. He is also Brandon Palmer. I got to figure out how to do that. And, of course, we got the lovely Lola Miller. And I'm still trying to figure out what to do.
You're doing good.
All righty.
We
our
still
guest,
have a guest, I hope. No.
Please say you're still on.
I'm here.
All right. Now, sorry we had to cut for a break there. Lola's just showing me some of the buttons to push here. Nick, you said you got a question from the chat room?
We do actually have a question from the chat room. It's from Joe Montaldo. Yeah, he says, ask her what the most powerful magic is.
Hi, Joe. The most powerful magic is the magic that works for you. I mean, that's the catch. People get very discouraged. They cast a spell and it doesn't work and they throw up their hands. But I always compare it to medicine. You know, if I have a headache and I take an aspirin and it works, and you have a headache and, and it doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean the aspirin doesn't work. It doesn't work for you. It's a journey. And the goal is to find what your power is, because we're not all the same. The larger picture of magic is that everything that you see has some kind of a power. Everything around you, I mean, look around, the colors on the wall, the fragrance in the air, everything has some kind of a power. And it's all doing stuff all the time. What a magic spell does is it attempts to take control of it, rather than how the stuff just happened to you. A spellcaster attempts to harness all these different forces and to bring in the forces that will help you achieve your goals. The first thing you need for a magic spell is a goal.
Mm-hmm.
There is no spell without a goal. And the more specific you can make it, the more likely a spell is to work. Spellcasting will teach you to really clarify your vision, to really think in terms of, what are people saying to you, what are you saying, how are you describing your goals, to really, really enunciate and really, really perfect that vision. The most, the master magicians out there, the witches and wizards and warlocks who are so acclaimed, people like Crowley and people like Marie Laveau, they discovered what worked for them, and they refined that vision, and that is the most powerful. When you can figure out what are your best tools, and there are a lot of methods. There's not just one method. I have a book called 5,000 Spells, and and I'm always joking. Nobody really needs 5,000. You need a dozen that work for you, but you have to wade through a lot. It's a learning process, and you can't give up too quickly. But that sort of weeds out the successful spellcasters from those who will not be successful. It's not an art for passive people. It's not an art for people who are kind of willing to just sort of take whatever life dishes out to you. The art of spellcasting, and I think why it sometimes evokes so much hostility, the classic is, what's the difference between a magic spell and a prayer?
Mm-hmm.
Prayer,
I was getting ready to ask. A prayer doesn't involve Eye of Newt.
A prayer is a request, and a spell is a demand.
Oh, okay.
A spell says this is what's going to happen,
mm-hmm.
and it is a learning process to figure out what works the best for you. But and I can sit here and tell you about the spells that didn't work, and as with anything else, sometimes it's the ones that don't work that teach you the most.
Well, that's like any life lesson.
Yeah, it is. People call it supernatural, but this is a really natural process. The process of spellcasting exists all around the world, among all different kinds of people. Every religion, every culture, every ethnicity has some history, whether or not they acknowledge it and whether or not they value it or whether or not it has been suppressed currently or not. Everyone's got some kind of a history of spellcasting. The witch figure,
mm-hmm.
the concept of a witch in some form, everybody will recognize it. It is really primal. It's really human nature. It's not going away. It is part of what it is intrinsic to being a human being.
Well, we had a question. Barb called,
mm-hmm.
and she wanted to know: can you be a witch and be a Christian?
Yeah, and I actually discussed that in the Weiserfield Guide to Witches. It's a controversial topic, and it is controversial because in Europe, so many witchcraft traditions were destroyed by the church, and so some people have this hostility. But, the pagan Romans were not a witch-friendly culture either. So, you can't blame Christianity for everything.
Yeah.
Hoodoo in particular, there are a lot of Christian hoodooers.
Mm-hmm.
There is, what I'm working on now is a book of saints and the magical practices associated with them. Folk Catholicism, folk Christianity involves a lot of, working with saints to further your goals in a very practical, magical system. But yes, and there are Jewish witches.
But my add-on to that is the Bible does clearly state that witchcraft is against.
Actually, no, because I don't really get into this that much in this book, but I have another book. It's a larger book called The Element Encyclopedia of Witchcraft, which goes into this into detail. The word used in the Bible, the famous quote is, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." That's the King James translation. The word used in the Bible, and it's a fascinating passage because it comes right after King Saul becomes the king. The word used could be translated as a poisoner also. And the word in Greek, they use the same word to... It is a word for witch, it is a word for poisoner, and it's a word for pharmacist.
I know. I took some classes at a temple, and she was going through some of the books, and part of what she was saying is in the translation, it is so difficult to know what they really meant because so many words have been mistranslated.
Well, King James, who followed Queen Elizabeth to the throne, and there is a lot on him, and he was Shakespeare's inspiration to write Macbeth and the witches because he was obsessed with witches. He was convinced that he had been attacked personally by witches. He was very hostile to witches. The British England had a fairly mild witch hunt, but Scotland did not. Scotland was the worst in Europe with the single exception of Germany. And King James very specifically removed the ambiguity from that phrase, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live."
Well, I mean, it's mentioned a few times
in
1 Samuel. Hold on.
No, can I just say one thing?
Okay.
It's very interesting because the famous witch in the Bible who is in this book is the witch of Endor, the woman of Endor, and it's so fascinating because
we went over it on church this week.
Yes, and she comes up right after that passage. And I've always found this so fascinating because it's very explicitly, the king will put away the witches and the shamans and the fortune tellers and the diviners. And then the passage comes up almost immediately. King Saul is in trouble. And he tells his men to go out and find him this conjuring woman. And it's so interesting that it's so juxtaposed. And I don't know, you could interpret it in different ways. Are they trying to interpret it in terms of the hypocrisy of the king?
Well, he had lost his place in God at this point.
You could look at it that way.
But in 1 Samuel 15, which is when that happens, in King James it does say, "For rebellion is like the sin of witchcraft." In New International, it clarifies it as the sin of divination.
But traditional Jews might not interpret it that way. I mean, these are all interpretations.
What was the
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, what's the translation between is it the same word that's used for Witch of Endor and, don't suffer?
The word is, she is a Baalat Ob. And the problem with that is Baalat is a mistress. And Ob, we don't really know what it is. It is, and there's all kinds of books written about it. It's not defined. Whatever it was back then, either they didn't want to define it, or they thought everybody knew what it was and they didn't have to define it. It is some sort of... She is not... By modern standards, I don't know that people would consider her a witch. She would be considered a medium or a shaman.
So kind of and I always thought a medium as someone...
Well, someone who
psychic.
communicates... Somebody who... I mean, there's a controversial word, necromancy, and people... people become very upset with the word necromancy. Necromancy, if you have ever played with a Ouija board, you are a necromancer. if you have consciously tried to dream of a dead relative, because you don't know where Grandma hid the money, and you hope that, like, in your dream he'll tell you, then you too. A necromancer is someone who does some sort of divination with the dead. Going out and being, defiling a cemetery does not make you a necromancer. That just makes you, somebody
Sick.
who goes, it's just. I mean, it can make you a jerk, but it doesn't make you a necromancer.
No, it's necromancy.
But that is what the woman of Endor is.
Yeah.
Because
is it like
brings
a
up
form?
Samuel.
Well, she brought the familiar spirit.
She brings up Samuel.
Yeah. Now, is that a form of witchcraft, or because we were
It
talking
depends
about types
on your
before.
definition. I
Sure.
would call it a form of witchcraft. Yeah, I would.
Because there can be a focus in it.
It depends if you want to look at witchcraft as a big picture.
And I think that's
in time, I mean,
why.
witchcraft, it was black and white back then. Now there's so much gray area that all the gray areas branched out into their own different things. That's why there's so much.
I don't think it was black and
There are people
white.
who perceive witchcraft as Satanism, and I would say that 99.9% of the people who consider themselves witches today would then not be witches. Do you see
Well,
it?
that's what I mean by the gray area.
Yeah, I mean, how are you interpreting the word? That becomes the question.
I think the issue because in the past, you wouldn't go and say we tend to be very society of labeling everything.
Yeah.
I mean, because and you like you've got in here, the Jewitchery.
Well, it's
and
a field
it probably could. What's that?
It's a field guide. Field guide.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is.
Yeah, I mean, field guide to butterflies. You're going to find each one
Exactly.
nicely,
And I don't think Aleister Crowley would necessarily have, if you would have asked him what he was, I don't think he would have said he was a witch, per se.
He probably
would have had a different answer every time you asked him.
He probably would have used the term magus. Which would probably have been low class for him. He was a pretty elegant guy.
Yeah.
He would have called himself a magus or a sorcerer. He might have liked necromancer.
Would he have went into warlock, and what would have been the difference?
Warlock is a really controversial word.
Mm-hmm.
It is a word that it's another word. All these words are constantly being redefined. It's a word that has had sort of a resurgence. The question is, where does that word come from? It is a word that will raise the hackles of many people. Warlock may come from one of two roots. If it comes from a Scottish word for oathbreaker, it offends people. Basically, the original warlocks in the British Isles were people who swore allegiance publicly to the church, but privately retained their magical practices, retained their pagan views.
Okay.
And then the church, were found out and got in trouble and were labeled warlocks. And so the word has negative associations for some people. You can really identify it in terms of almost like the crypto-Jews of Iberia, people who were, sort of, given an unpleasant choice to, leave or pick a new religion and sort of thought they could hedge their bets a little bit and ended up getting into a lot of trouble with it. The alternative is that it is not a word of Scottish origin. It is a word of Nordic origin, and that it is related to the word for ward, for protection, and that warlocks are people who magically protected their community. And so a lot of people from northern pagan traditions really like that word. It is a word that they perceive very positively.
And I think that's the one that I've always heard of that, I guess, origin. Which even gets into, I know we're running out of time here, but one of the things that I always found interesting was, going into Harry Potter, which is, of course, fictional witchcraft. And the first book that came over in England was called, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
Right.
Of course, then you bring it over to, U.S. and kids won't read anything with philosopher in the title.
They didn't think we were smart enough, right?
So let's put sorcerer there, and
yeah,
which caused a lot of problems,
yeah,
of course.
they wanted to. Yeah, I know. It would be very interesting if they had left it Philosopher's Stone. What would have happened?
I've thought about that myself because I don't.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been as read.
Yeah, that would have been sad. But I mean, do you think that? I mean, is sorcerer and philosopher even interchangeable?
No, but it's a reference to a thing. There's an alchemical powder. It's not even a stone. Not only is it not philosophers or sorcerers, it's not even a stone. It's a powder. It's the elixir of life. It was the goal of the alchemist. And Nicholas Flamel, who is a historic person who is also a character in the Harry Potter books. It was the alchemist's goal to. And there's more about. I mean, I know we're running out of time. There's more about this in the book, but.
We do have your book available on our website, correct, Nick?
Yeah, we do. We have that up. I've actually got also a link to your.
Thank you.
I've got a link to your website. The book links up to Amazon, so people can click there and buy it right away.
That way, if any of our listeners want to find out more, want to check you out, and they can go right to our website, whispersradio.com.
And you also have the book for sale on your website as well, right? Or at least links.
but if the people want signed copies, they can just contact me.
Okay, great.
Nice.
Well, and I see on there you got your 5,000 spells.
Yeah, I got them all.
You got them all there. So, and those are all on Amazon. So go get them. So
thank you.
This went by really quickly.
Yes, it did. It was
I feel
great.
like I just started talking.
I know.
I know, and I have so many other questions. We'll have to have you back.
Oh,
I want
that
to
would
thank
be
you very
wonderful.
much for sharing with us.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.
Or
Okay.
Jordan.
Did I get it? Yep.
Wow.
All right. For any of our listeners, make sure before you, make your own opinion about witchcraft and Christianity, do your own research. Don't take my word. Don't take the guess word. We're not the scholarly on it. Make sure you do your own research. Talk to your pastor about it. You listen to Whispers Radio. We're going to have some CNN.
Yes, we are. We're going.
Sparkle blue beauty like a young man's dream.
Welcome back to Whispers Radio here on AM 1600 WKKX, the Valley's Watchdog, and UPRN, the UFO Paranormal Radio Network. I just turned the TV on live. Good thing there was an old TV show on there.
Oh, I didn't even know you could turn the TVs on.
Yeah.
How the heck did you do that?
I didn't either, but I looked up and there was like a dance scene in black and white going on.
I just thought you hit some music file.
That was good.
Well,
good
I'm
music.
trying to figure out. I only had one song in the player, and I'm thinking, where in the hell did that come from?
That's
Wow. Welcome back, everybody.
funny. We're having a good old time.
Aren't we, though?
Give us a call, 304-214-1600 if you're out of the area, 1-866-514-1600.
Thank God it wasn't some drama thing in there,
There was music there at that part.
It could have went so bad.
Brandon, can't you read his hand signals either?
No,
I'm
I
horrible with
don't
these
understand
things.
He
those.
was
Like
Brandon.
a wave or-
Yeah,
He was trying to do them to me
still
earlier,
dancing
too.
to the music, doing the
No, that's a
fish.
dry heave. I was like, hey. Yeah, so
I'm glad I'm not the only one that has no idea what he means.
I try though.
He does it. He does it to me, and I just give him a look, like
Jordan just usually gives me the finger. Let's be honest. He's like, "Here's my hand signal."
not true.
Okay.
Yeah, and if we believe that,
I got a bridge.
yep, I got some swampland.
I want to hear that intro music again.
I would. I actually think that's Andy Griffith on there.
Yes,
That
I
is
think
Andy
it is.
Griffith, and I saw Barney on there, but this isn't Andy Griffith though, right? What movie is this?
Probably a face in the crowd. I think.
Some military movie. Is that
Oh
it?
no, it's No Time for Sergeants.
Oh, okay.
We're
Okay.
watching Turner Class. I was watching Turner Classic Movies all day, every day.
You must really like that because you do have that on a lot. So
Yes, I do.
kind of peaceful and
Well, yeah, it doesn't. There's no. Yeah.
there's no violence really, and
Well, and it's closed captioning, so if I really get bored, I can put that on and read the dialogue.
or if you get really bored, you just hit the button. It comes right on the speaker.
The truth comes out to what Lola really does on Whispers.
You're like, I wish I had that.
And then when the battery or remote battery goes dead, she goes, "I'm mad,"
Oh, I am.
and
I
we
keep
think it's about
forgetting.
the show.
Yeah.
The funny part is,
See what an actress I am? You just have no idea. I should be
Speaking of
nominated.
which, your
Yes.
movie that you were in, I was hanging out with Mr. Judika the other day,
Yeah.
and he said, "Hey, you want to see Lola's makeout scene?"
How did he get that?
So we went downstairs and we watched it.
He's got the courier.
I got to see his face blown off.
Wait a
by the
second. Let's see if
shotgun.
we can get that on Amazon.
No,
to
you
sell.
can't. I don't think it ever went straight to DVD. It was supposed to go straight to DVD, and I don't even know that it did that. Well, Jay and I, we had a master plan with this. You see, we figured, okay, they're going to need some sex in this movie, so.
So Lola says, "I'll do it."
Absolutely. I figured, we were always like behind John because it was this scene down in a bar. And so every time the red light came on the camera filming John doing his dialogue, we'd start making out thinking, well, okay, we'll be in there somewhere.
Yeah.
And then they thought it was so amusing. That's how I got to be billed as Barho number 3.
This is on Internet Movie Database.
Yes, I am. I am.
Let's see here.
And do you know the only person in the whole cast that got left out of that is John?
Really?
And John had John
did.
has a big part in it.
Is this Frank O'Brien?
I mean,
Yes,
it wasn't
it is.
wasn't the classiest of acting because I got to see some John highlights.
Lola is Willing Bar Girl number 2.
Yes. Number 2. I see. I moved
Yeah,
up
see,
in
you
the.
moved up.
There you go.
I did. Yeah, it was fun. And
Barho number 1 must have died.
Redneck Mob number 5. Sam, is that
Sammy.
Sammy, yeah.
Everybody was in it. Tiffany, me, Sammy, Bill Timko, Tim Mattern, Drozenko, John, Frank O'Brien. Yeah, a lot of
Jerry
people.
Ames was in there too.
Yeah.
wasn't he?
Yeah.
Michael Showers, who I'm sorry, the name's kind of funny.
Well, there was a love scene. We had to get a porn star. No.
No,
Michael
he was the main star, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. They kept telling me I have seen him in things, and I think maybe a commercial or something, but.
She's like, in my dreams.
Yeah, no, not really. Not
I'm
really.
looking at the picture.
Oh, well, I didn't have any scenes with them at all. Anyway, we were down we were in Ernie's Cork and Bottle downstairs in that like grotto part. And at one point, the director actually said, "Don't give her any more liquor."
He's been in the Vampire Diaries.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
yeah, there you go. He was.
I'll tell
he
you,
was the man.
It worked out well for me because I auditioned for the movie that they're going to film in Weirton.
Oh yeah.
And so it was like, do you have any, movie experience, TV experience? Well, I can actually say I'm on IMDb, right? And so I had to do a couple improv scenes and stuff. So I don't know.
So you're like,
get
okay,
a
well,
call,
show us what you
you know.
did. And
Yeah.
Lola stuck her tongue out and started attacking somebody.
He's like, bring that one over here.
Let's
Unfortunately,
face
it was
it.
2 women that we had to audition in front of. So, that kind of blew that. But
Let's face it, Lola. There was some tongue in that scene. I was like, look at her go!
well, this is after the code, so all bets are off. At least my top didn't fall off or anything.
What you should have done was say, "Hey,
You'd
can
have
I
got
get a
another
copy
role.
of this? This has to go on YouTube."
This is going on Whisper's website.
Well, and the thing was, they asked too over here for this newest movie if you'd been paid, and I said, "Does liquor count?" No, it doesn't.
So the question is, how far into your pay did it take to get to the bar scene where you're kissing?
Not very far.
Okay.
How drunk and how many
I wanted to be
takes?
in that movie so bad it didn't matter. But yeah, that's what's fun about, particularly that scene. It takes all day. It takes all day, literally. It takes all day. So we started out the scene with just a table, and we had some fake, just prop wine glasses and a couple. By the end of the day, you couldn't get another drink on the table. And they were for real. It was
Sure, it looked rather
fun.
crowded.
So did you make out with somebody that we know? Was it?
Jeez, I don't kiss and tell.
Well, you put it on a movie.
Obviously.
It was filmed for the world.
You figured out. You got the cast there. You figured
I'm
it out.
working. Give me a
Jeez,
second
that'll
here.
take him forever.
No, I know.
He's
That's
running
why I
it.
told
But you
him
got
to
7.
do it.
It's 7.7 stars, so it's really.
What?
Yeah, it's user rating 7.7 out of 10.
That's because all of us got
So
it
Lola's 10.
and did it. But no, I was just surprised that, I was on IMDb.
Yeah,
That's
it's nice.
impressive. I think.
Druzeko, if you're listening, text me who she made out with.
He'll figure it out. I mean, it's not rocket science there, Nick.
Well, I'm hoping it's not the redneck mob, or Black Jihad number 2.
No, that was the jihadists were at the end.
What is this movie about?
It was great.
It's they have this briefcase that supposedly has a dirty bomb in it.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, the chase scenes and actually it was just gratuitous sex. I can't figure out why they showed what they showed early in the movie because it really had no impact. But he's got this briefcase and he has to get it from, I don't know, Cincinnati or something to somewhere else. And that's what it is. It's this chase thing, and the bad guys want it, and they're trying to steal it, and
I'm hoping you made out with Hooks Harrigan.
No, that was cool.
And that guy really
does have a handle or a hook on each hand.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Is
that
he
was
He's
is he
really a
local?
nice guy. No, he's not local.
John W. Lawson.
I mean, he's really a nice guy. Really nice guy. He was in the scenes that I was
Oh,
in.
okay.
But he didn't want me he wanted Tiffany. So,
Well, yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot of these willing bar girls, so.
yeah, there were a few of us hanging out.
There's like 7 or 8 at this point. I'm looking through. And willing bar girl number 6 is above you, which you need to talk about. I mean, why did she get
I don't know who
above
is
you
it.
on
She had a better scene, I guess.
Yeah.
Erica Douglas?
Oh, I think she was the one sitting. Frank O'Brien's wife was on one side of him, and then her friend was on the other side. And I hope she's not listening, but Tiffany and I knew we could have done it better. But, and they were just supposed to be like flirting with him and all this stuff as he's doing business. And, I don't know. I don't even, I
Go
know
big
it's
or
me
go
and Tim.
home, Lola.
And my last
No.
guest, Elvis?
Elvis. Sure. You can't figure it out?
No, I doesn't. From what I got here, it doesn't look like I can. Just going through. I mean, there's Redneck Mobs. There's News Anchorman.
No.
Yeah, and there's
The
Section
news
13
anchor man
agents.
actually is the director.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Now, I'm just looking through. It doesn't really show anything that could be, Frank Barnhart.
No.
Okay. And Frank had to stretch for that role. Frank O'Brien.
Yeah.
It
couldn't
took
remember
him a
his
while
name.
to get his name right.
Yeah.
Actually, he really did a good job, and they were shooting in the rain. And well, you saw it where he falls flat on his ass. That was not in the script.
Yeah, he really fell.
Yeah, hard. But
Now,
and all
is
that.
Gloria his wife?
Yeah.
Wow, she's got a really big thing on here. She's got a lot of movies and stuff.
Who?
Gloria O'Brien?
Let me see. Now
Yeah.
you got me wondering.
She's all kinds of stuff.
Well, read them off.
Well, it means Lies and Illusions. She was in Spider-Man 3.
No,
That's not the same one.
No.
I think they linked the wrong name then. So that's not her. Yeah, see but she can go, I'm on IMDb, they come here.
Yeah, they screwed that one up.
She's like, I've been in all kinds of stuff. Spider-Man 3, I was Bryce Dallas Howard's stunt girl.
That's not.
All right, well, while we're waiting on the magic text to see who Lola made out with.
Oh, yeah, like Mike's going to tell you.
Oh, Mike will tell me.
We'll just look at the end and,
Did you text him?
Yeah. Of course I did.
Mike Druzeko is Redneck Mob number 2.
He did a good job.
And he's down 27% in popularity this week. Mike Druzeko. Yeah.
Oh, no.
I'm voting against him right now. So, what you know what?
You know what I wanted to ask the guest, and forgive me for going back into the paranormal
Okay, thank you.
on this show. But, like the whole outlook, I guess, with witches, with the flying brooms and the cats and all that, where all that came from. Because I guess she'd know, right?
Mm-hmm. I would
You'd
assume,
think she would
yeah.
know.
She does have the book, and I did see the brooms are in here, and cats. So,
All right, Nikki, you want to introduce our guest?
I can do that. All right. Well, Giorgio and Tsoukalos is the star and consulting producer of Ancient Aliens, the series, and publisher of Legendary Times magazine, the only ancient astronaut publication in the world. He's a real-life Indiana Jones and changing the way the world thinks about the ancient astronaut theory. He's also the editor of Eric Van Daniken's new book, Twilight of the Gods, and the Ancient Alien series. Giorgio, are you with us?
Oh, hit that button there.
Giorgio, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Sorry about that. We're training Jordan to work the board. He forgot to hit a button.
No worries. It's all good.
Hey, it's all coming together.
So, first off, Ancient Aliens. It's a fascinating series. Actually, coming on now. I actually just learned a couple of days ago, second season of that.
Yes, in fact.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm actually conducting this interview from one of the production offices here in Hollywood. So we're right in the middle. I'm in between meetings, taking time out for this interview, and we're discussing, or actually putting together the storylines for 10 more one-hour episodes. And the first one will air sometime in the late fall, like end of October, beginning of November.
Wow.
And so we're all, doing overtime here, and we're all very excited about this.
Now, with that quick of a turnaround time, how long does it take to make an episode?
Well, there's a few teams that are working on multiple episodes, and so the work is essentially divided. But we've got a great team working here, and everyone is enjoying the subject matter, and so it's absolutely a joy to be a part of this experience.
Wow. Now, Ancient Aliens, we got a lot of listeners that are probably like, what's the difference? You want to tell us what an ancient alien is?
Yeah, essentially, ancient alien is another word for ancient astronauts, and the ancient astronaut or ancient alien theory tries to prove whether or not extraterrestrials visited Earth in the remote past. And that might sound very crazy at first, but the deeper you dig, the more such an idea actually makes sense. Because, wherever you look in the ancient world, whether it's in Europe or in South America, North America, or in Africa, all the different continents, what you find are all these references to the gods. And when you talk about the gods, or when mainstream archaeology talks about the gods, it's pretty much that, the monuments and the ancient buildings were all built in worship or in reverence of the gods, and then that's it, and we can go home, mystery solved. Well, this is actually where the questioning, in my opinion, begins, because you can't say, or you can't argue, okay, this was built for the gods, and then case closed. Our question is, well, who were these gods? Because in the most cases, in fact, in all cases, the gods are always described in having descended from the sky with a lot of noise and a lot of fire and dust and the trembling of the earth and things like this. And we have to understand that our ancestors were highly intelligent. They were as intelligent as we are today because, over the last 10,000 years, nothing really happened to our brain development. It's been the same brain pretty much. And so the only difference is that our ancestors didn't understand the nuts and bolts aspects behind those visits of those flesh and blood extraterrestrials, and so they misinterpreted those beings as being divine in nature, as being, magical, which in reality they never were.
Well, my question is, why is it that I know archaeologists don't want to get in, I guess, into the paranormal. A lot, most of them, they want to get very cut and dry. This is what we found. This is the interpretation. But what do you think is the biggest barrier? Is it ridicule in the academic world, or something else?
No, not necessarily. Yes, that's definitely that's a part of it. But the main thing is that our history, the way it is presented in schools and in universities, that has been it's been cobbled together quite carefully, and so. Any differing views are in direct opposition of what we're being taught in school, and so that really doesn't bode well with the academics. Now, what's very interesting is that on multiple occasions I've experienced where academics retired, and the moment they retired, they came forward and they said, look, the ancient astronaut theory is actually quite credible, very interesting. So, right there, that the reason why during their careers they said that the ancient astronaut theory is nonsense is because of necessity, because they, would have thought or might have been fired or something like this. So things are definitely changing. But it's a very interesting road, to put it that way.
Well, now, do you think a lot of this has to go into more like, if it's so hard for us to even disclose that we're currently, and I'm not even sure, do you believe that we're currently being visited by these? Would it be the same entities or different entities that were here in the ancient past? Would that be correct? Before we can go on.
Yeah, no, I'm certain that we're being visited currently as well, and whether or not it is the same entities as we've seen or that we can read about in the past, that I don't know, because I'm convinced that there is multiple species out there. Is it possible that the same species is visiting us? Absolutely, yes. Mm-hmm. And those visits never stop. It's not like, we have ancient astronauts and then all of a sudden we have Roswell and nothing in between. I mean, there has been an ongoing process in which we've been pretty much, observed from outside.
Okay, well, if it's, it's very hard for us right now to, even disclose this, or even talk about it, in the government, academia, what have you. Do you think it's going to be easier to get them to start discussing, the implications behind the ancient astronaut theory, or even that we were visited, or do you think that would be even harder to go into?
Well, I mean, it depends. You see, there are some modern UFO reports that you simply cannot deny. I mean, anyone who says, it's a weather balloon or it's an optical illusion or something like that. I mean, sometimes, or actually oftentimes, the conventional answers, no longer make sense. And that's when you have to concede and say, all right, so there's something going on that we're not quite sure about. And the only reason, in my opinion, why we haven't made official contact yet is because this right now is a very dangerous planet. I mean, our species is killing each other. There's wars all around the planet, poverty, misery. With potential, and we have the potential of solving all of these problems. However, at the moment, to any outside society, I think that we are a threat to them and not the other way around. I mean, in Native American myths, this planet is known as the planet of the children. And that is very appropriate if you look around. I mean, we're nothing but a bunch of children running around in circles.
Yeah, little petulant children that can't get along. Seriously.
Yep.
And we're ruining the planet. If there was ever any environmental reason or elemental reason that they would have wanted to come here, by the time we finally do acknowledge their existence, we may have used it all up.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, that kind of puts the whole, well, they're coming for our resources.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Too late.
We're screwing that one up good. The Mayan calendar. Mm-hmm. What are your feelings about that? Do you believe that, I mean, I've heard the theory that, of course, they just stopped because it went so far and that's all the further they went, or that the world is going to come to some apocalyptic end, or is it just going to be a change of consciousness?
Yes, the world most certainly will not come to an apocalyptic end. All those discussions, in my opinion, are nonsense, and I'll tell you why. Because the Mayans themselves, they never, ever said that the world will come to an end in 2012. What they did say is that that particular period of time comes to an end. And just like at the end of each year in December, our desk calendar or our wall calendar runs out by the end of the year, we just go to the store and we buy ourselves a new one for the following year. And that is the exact same example with the Mayan calendar, that a new period of time, new cogwheels, because the Mayan calendar looks like a bunch of cogwheels put together, will commence.
So they just got tired of making that one.
Say again?
So they just got tired of making that one.
Yes, exactly. But so here's the fascinating story, or the fascinating aspect that I find intriguing, and that is nobody talks about. Everybody talks about the end of the Mayan calendar, but nobody talks about the beginning. And scholars so far have sort of come to an agreement for a potential date when the Mayan calendar started, and that was the 11th of August, 3114 BC. Now, we would all have to agree that in 3114 BC, the Maya didn't even exist. So what compelled them, to create a calendar and actually make sure that, this calendar began at that time? And according to the ancient Mayan myths, that was a time when the gods descended from the sky and the road to the stars came down as well. And so, we have all these references of, gods descended a long, long time ago. And in the Mayan opinion, 3114 BC is a time, or a particular time, when these gods, or gods descend. And by the way, whenever I say gods, it's always lowercase g. Mm-hmm. It has absolutely nothing to do with the creator of the universe, or the force of creation. But what's even more important, that will lay the whole 2012 discussion to rest, is that it's not even 2010 right now. Because if you ever noticed that we went from 1 BC to 180, there is no year zero, so already we're 1 year off. And then we have concise evidence that in the Middle Ages, when the monks were responsible for recording our calendar, they made mistakes up to 5 years. Oh. So 5 plus 1 is 6. So right now, it's either 2016 or it's 2004.
It's 2004 because that would make me younger.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Scratch the 2016 thing.
I actually heard, along with that, where the monks were messing up the calendars, that Jesus was, because the AD was supposed to, switch at Jesus' birth or whatever, but it was really, he was born in 4 AD. With the way that they messed the calendars up.
And you were going to, and you just addressed my next point I was going to make, and that is exactly what you said. Do we know 100% that the calendar was counted, or our calendar began truly when Jesus was born? Or did it start when he died on the cross? Or did it start 100 years after he died on the cross, or 200 years after he died? We don't know. So this entire 2012 discussion right now, it's such nonsense. It's not even funny. I mean, it's in my opinion, 2012 is nothing else but Y2K 2.0.
Yes.
I have an old DVD player in my house that's got a big sticker on it that says Y2K compliant.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sorry. And I don't use this word lightly, but it's nonsense. It is.
See, this is great. You're the first guest that we've had talking about 2012 that has came up with that answer.
It made sense.
Most of them say, "Oh, it's just going to be a new beginning."
Because I have no book to sell, guys.
But you got a TV show to sell.
Yeah, well, but the TV show, let me tell you, we are The last episode that we're working on right now will be about the end of days, will be about the apocalypse, will be about 2012.
Oh, wow.
But we already have agreed upon the idea that my viewpoint is presented as well. You see, that's the great thing about Ancient Aliens, the show, that we're presenting. Yes, we're obviously centering the show around ancient astronauts, ancient aliens, but at the same time, we're also exploring other answers that have been suppressed, other answers that not many people even heard about before.
Yeah.
And so, that's where our show really stands out compared to all the other shows because, it really is, there's a lot of sensationalism going on right now, but let's be honest, the fact alone that we might have been visited by extraterrestrials in the past and are being visited still today, that's sensational enough. You don't need the end of the world. You don't need, all this doom and gloom because already the story is so amazing that, let's address it. Let's look at it and let's find out what's going on.
Wow, you've just given me so much hope. I was just telling everybody in the break that over the weekend I was immersed in Through the Wormhole, and it was like, oh my God, the planet's going to blow up, and black holes and black energy are going to come, dark energy are going to come, and wow, you just gave me all new hope. So thank you.
I do have some questions on the chat room. They've been piling up, so I want to make sure I get to these, and this will get us back. I guess maybe switch. Well, let's go first, I guess, to stay on the Mayan calendar. This is from M.Y. Lilly. Do we know how old the most recent Mayan calendar is? Perhaps by carbon dating. And can we figure out, what this year is on the Mayan calendar?
I'm not quite sure if I understand the question, but you cannot carbon date a calendar because the calendar is made of stone. So you can only carbon date organic material like bones and like organic stuff that used to be quote unquote alive. So yeah, that's the big problem obviously in archaeology, that you can't really date stone. I mean, you can with a different method, but it's crazy expensive. But the Mayan calendars that have been found, they are genuine, they are ancient, and some have been found that are, 10 to 12 feet in diameter. Humongous pieces of stone, and massive slabs that have been carved, in a very masterful way. And before, when I talked about, the quote about the Mayans, about them descending from the stars. I found the quote real quick, and anyone can go read that. It's you can find this in the Book of the Jaguar Priests. It's also called the Chilam Balam. And in there it says, they descended from the street of the stars. They spoke the magic tongue of the stars of heaven. Yeah, their sign is our certainty that they came from heaven. And when they return, the 13 gods, and the 9 gods, they will reorder what they once created. So, right there, you don't even need any imagination. You can just read into this from a modern perspective, because one thing we have to remind ourselves is that, like I mentioned at the beginning of this interview, our ancestors were as intelligent as we are today, intellectually speaking. However, technologically speaking, and this only applies to technology, they were primitive. They were not as advanced. So they misinterpreted all these nuts and bolts events and with flesh and blood extraterrestrials as something divine, as something spiritual in nature, which it never was. And so they had to use, in order to describe all those things, they had to use the vocabulary that was at their disposal at the time. It was in their frame of reference. Their frame of reference was different than our frame of reference that we have today.
That's
Plus,
good.
Our collective consciousness is way bigger today because of thousands of years of achievements than theirs, our ancestors, because they had been around for a shorter amount of time than we have been around today.
So now, is there any way at all to I guess, find out what year this would be on the Mayan calendar at all?
Well, according to in this case, where the scholars actually agree for once on one
nice.
particular, that was around 3,114 BC, and that is when, according to the Book of the Jaguar Priest or the Chilambalam, that's when the road or the streets of the stars, or to the stars, descended to earth, and the gods descended and taught mankind in various disciplines. And it's interesting that they should choose 3,114 BC because that coincides with a whole bunch of other stories that we have from around the world, including ancient Egypt and Sumeria. So, and those ancient stories, those traditions, ancient texts from that part of the world is chock full with these accounts of these strange beings that descended from the sky a long, long time ago and taught mankind in various disciplines, always referred to as the gods, lowercase g, or guardians of the sky, or the teachers from heaven.
Okay, now, I guess going away from Maya, this was from Gia Tree. She wants to know, in your opinion, what is the most profound piece of research that they found in support of the ancient astronaut theory?
Well, many people expect me to say the pyramids in Egypt, and that is not the case because, the classic ancient astronaut theory that I represent, it does not. I do not propose, and neither do my colleagues that I work with on Ancient Aliens, and Eric von Daniken and all those guys. We do not propose that the pyramids were built by aliens, because that's not what it says in the ancient text. What it says is that the pyramids were built by humans, by human hand, but with the assistance of the guardians of the sky, meaning technologically they were given help. Extraterrestrial technology helped in the building of those monuments. And to return to the question, what is, in my opinion, the most compelling piece of evidence we have currently? I mean, there are obviously multiple pieces. However, the most compelling, in my opinion, is this field of ruins in the highlands of the Andes on the border between Bolivia and Peru, right next to Lake Titicaca, which is the highest navigable lake in the world, at a site called Pumapunku, which is right next to Tiwanaku. And in Tiwanaku, every day, hundreds and hundreds of tourists arrive there and marvel at the site, yet they don't know that only 150 yards away there is this other archaeological site called Pumapunku. And at Pumapunku, I don't know even how to describe it, but it is so fascinating because we have these massive, massive slabs of stone which at one point all fit together. Some of these stones are as heavy as 100 metric tons.
Wow.
And they have been cut to such precision where if you touch some of the corners of those stones, you can actually cut your finger.
Wow.
And in many cases, those stones have been cut so intricately that I know a modern-day stone sculptor. His name is Roger Hopkins, whom I've showed pictures to him of Pumapunku, and he said to my face, he looked me in the eye, and he said, "Not for any amount of money would I try to recreate some of that stuff that I see in those pictures." And that's a modern-day stonemason that has all the modern equipment at his disposal.
Wow, we do have a phone call.
Yes, Giorgio, this is Hank. Go ahead, Hank.
Hey, I'd like to ask your guest what's his opinion of the Nazca lines. To me, that's the most intriguing indication that they were created for somebody up in the air, because you can't really see them well on the ground. And I don't know if these drawings of these different animals are in the same vicinity as the Nazca lines.
They are.
Those had to be drawn for someone in the air, maybe by someone in the air, laser cut. I'd like to hear more about what you think about the Nazca lines. Thank you.
Thanks, Hank.
Yeah, thanks, Hank, for the question. I mean, and the answer is yes. I mean, one of the figures. I mean, you have a whale there, you have spiders, monkeys, a hummingbird, all those different animals. But one of the shapes that we can see, or actually two or three, there's about two or three humanoid-looking beings that have, antennae on their heads or halos, what they call today is a halo. And then there is another object, another figure that looks eerily similar to E.T., the extraterrestrial, with big eyes and sort of a triangular head. And what's really interesting is that with one hand, one arm or one hand is pointing up to the sky, and the other arm or the other hand is pointing down to the ground. And interestingly enough, by the local population, that particular figure to this day is nicknamed the astronaut, El Astronauta. So it's very fascinating, and we now know that something isn't right at NASCA. Something doesn't make sense because a few years ago, the Erich von Däniken Foundation, along with Legendary Times and the German Legendary Times, we had permission to conduct a little bit of research on the plane of Nazca, which you can't really do because it's a UNESCO protected area, and it's cordoned off because of fear of destroying the area. But if you have the right connections and the right grants, then you can definitely conduct some research there, and that's what we did. And the results and the experiments or the questions we had were something that no one else had done before. So because we went in there with new eyes, with new ideas, with other results in mind, and so we essentially conducted experiments that measured background radiation, that measured electric and magnetic fields, and to make a very long story short, always when you look at if you look at NASCA and you look at it from a bird's eye perspective, then obviously it really looks like an airport. By the way, nobody in the ancient astronaut theory, including Erich von Däniken, ever said that it is or was an airport. It looks like an airport, and it truly does, because all those airstrips, I mean those bands, those wide bands and lines look like airstrips.
I've got it pulled up now on the computer, and it does.
Exactly.
It does.
And you can just Google Nazca, and you find hundreds of pictures, and they're quite impressive. But at the beginning and at the end of those airstrips, what's really intriguing is that you find increased levels against, in magnetic fields and in radiation. So it doesn't make sense that at the beginning and at the end of these lines are values that exceed the natural background radiation. I mean, so that number in and of itself is very fascinating. And then the other thing is that at Nazca, there are entire mountaintops that are completely missing. It's as if somebody took a cheese knife and just sheared off the summit. And nowhere in the area do you find the rubble. And in one case, there is an actual line that was obviously created after the mountain top was cut off.
Wow.
So it's all very fascinating. And you know what? I mean, the idea that we represent is basically that a long, long time ago, I mean, that area was always inhabited. So a long, long time ago, when extraterrestrials visited Earth, it would be almost a given for them to go to Nazca, because still today, Nazca is an area of the world that really stands out because of its rich abundance of natural resources, raw materials. So it's almost like a beacon, right? So obviously, if you want to know about planet Earth and its consistency, you would go there to learn. So let's assume, hypothetically, that a craft landed there, and just like today, we've landed, or a robot has landed on the moon. the rover, and it's roving around up on the. Did I say the moon? I meant the. I
Yeah, I
meant
know
Mars.
what you meant.
Sorry, I meant Mars. Even on the moon, also we had the lunar mobile that also left behind tracks. Okay, because of dust. But anyway, so on Mars, the rover leaves behind these lines as it travels around. So let's assume that a similar experience happened at Nazca, where something lands and it leaves behind tracks. And of course, the native population is frightened by the sight of this monstrosity that's landing there and all this research or these observations. And after that craft disappears again, the natives come out of hiding and wonder, what the heck just happened here? Obviously, we were visited by God.
Yeah.
So,
if I can interrupt you real quick, we do have another caller.
Yeah,
cool.
This is Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, Jordan. Hi, Giorgio. I thought your Ancient Alien show was very thought-provoking.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The pyramids, Newgrange, Stonehenge, Glastonbury were all built about the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Could the aliens have started a renaissance like 5,000 years ago, and what was their purpose for doing all those monumental buildings at that time?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Mark, for the question. It's a question because the thing is that is exactly what the ancient astronaut theory teaches, that if it hadn't been for an extraterrestrial intervention 12,000, sometimes even 25,000, 50,000 years ago, there were these multiple times when we were visited and something happened. In fact, even Charles Darwin himself, look, the ancient astronaut theory does not negate or contest Darwin's evolutionary theory, Darwinian evolution, and because we have the fossil record, it's there. So there's no sense in debating that. However, anyone who has read The Origin of Species knows that even Darwin himself, who totally liked his idea, and granted, it is a very good theory, explains a lot, but even Darwin himself in the end said, but something doesn't make sense because we have not yet discovered a bridge between different species, and thus the infamous missing link was born. And the missing link is what the ancient astronaut theory tries to solve, or you can bridge that with the ancient astronaut theory, because back then, over periods of time, targeted mutations of our genes took place by extraterrestrials by essentially interfering with our genetic makeup. And so the idea of the Renaissance 12,000 years ago is highly fascinating, because that is exactly what happened, that those gods, lowercase g, has nothing to do with the universe or the all-encompassing force and all this, that those gods were bringers of culture. And if that sounds crazy to you, then all you have to think is 1,000 years from now or 5,000 years from now, when we will travel into deep space, and let's say we come across another planet that hosts intelligent life, and what will we do? Will we just stand back and watch and observe? Sure, for maybe 5 months, until we learn their language, until we learn their ways. But after that, our ego is too inflated to just leave again. No, we will meddle with them. Providing that intelligent life is technologically primitive, of course, not intellectually, but technologically. And so we will teach them a few things, show them a couple of tricks, and guess what? 1,000 years after our departure, we will be there, ancient astronauts, in their society.
Now, I know you were an editor for the book Twilight of the Gods.
Yes.
And the book itself talks about Punka, which we mentioned earlier. And what exactly is it at Punka? That is, I know the stone carvings are very intricate, very detailed, Like you said, you can cut them and touch them, and it might even cut your hand at some point. What exactly does that mean for the ancient astronaut theory, and what were they trying to do there, I guess?
Well, basically, you see, according to mainstream archaeology, all this stuff at Puma Punku was done with chicken bones and with obsidian. And that...
Very hard to do.
It's absurd. It's completely absurd because the stones we have there are diorite and andesite and, granite, really, igneous rock, very hard stone. And... if you look at that, it's physically impossible to even make a dent into granite with obsidian or with a chicken bone. I mean, it's just impossible, or any type of a copper tool or something that they allegedly had. So, the solution to that is that the only way you can cut something like this is if you have something that's harder. And the only thing that's harder than those stones that I've just mentioned is quartzite and diamond. And so, diamond-tipped tools were not invented until, quote-unquote, modern times. And, of course, that is not the case because, obviously, our ancestors did this. And also at Puma Punku, what's also interesting is the fact that the entire site at Puma Punku is completely anonymous. There are because at Tiwanaku, which is 150 yards away, you find hieroglyphics, you find interesting, carvings of faces and of, bizarre-looking creatures. But at Puma Punku, there's absolutely nothing. Everything is anonymous, not a single hieroglyph, and no embellishments, no flowers, no nothing. It's all very technical. It's only squares and rectangles, and it's as if all these parts always had a female and a male part, and it all at one point fit together. And it's just absolutely incredible because still today we would have great difficulties trying to recreate what we find at Puma Punku. And by the way, I forgot to mention that Puma Punku is 14,000 feet altitude.
Uh-huh.
So that means it's above the tree line. So there never were any trees that you could cut down to use for wooden rollers for transportation. So right there, those are things that mainstream archaeology basically just likes to ignore and not tell you about. But, that's how it is. There never were any trees back then because it's too high up.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of things you have to, agree to, absurdities you have to agree to start getting these ancient theories to even work. Like you said, there's no trees, there's no, you have to cut this with fish bone, and it's like, okay, well, maybe they were just really, really good, So it's a lot of fascinating stuff. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. We'll have to have you back on because I had so many other questions.
It would be my pleasure.
Yeah, I've had a lot of fun. I said, your
views
on 2012 are different than anybody. I mean, we've been doing this show for
so
close to 3 years.
It really is. I'm
glad, I'm glad, and it's. I like to get people thinking. I don't want anyone. By the way, anything I said today in this interview, do not believe a single word I said. Just go out there and do your own research and corroborate it for yourself, and you'll see that you can go and read the quote I gave about the Chilam Balam books and the Road to the Stars. And so, anyone who claims to have the truth, to have all the answers, run for the hills. Those people, no one can claim that. No one. And the ones that do, like I said, run for the hills.
I like that. We do have all your information up on our website.
Yeah, we've got a link to the book, legendarytimes.com is your website and magazine. That was one of the things I wanted to get into. The book is Twilight of the Gods, Eric von Daniken, the author. You are the editor. Ancient Alien series, we got that linked up as well. Go watch it. It's wonderful. So,
well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Giorgio.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
It was for us too. Thank you.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, Nikki, who we got next week?
Next week we have Father Sebastian.
Oh, please tell me what he's about.
Well, he's a vampire.
Is he going to marry us or something? I don't know.
He's a vampire.
You wish.
He's a
He lives
vampire?
his life as a vampire.
He lives his life as a vampire.
Oh, my.
He'll be calling here from Paris. City of
great.
Love.
Yeah, Paris what? Alabama?
No, he's from France.
Paris, France.
Seriously, we're going to
Seriously.
have a French vampire on.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we are.
You know,
Well, now when you
I've
say
got
it
to
like
finish the
that-
whole True Blood series then before this guy comes on.
we don't hold anything back with Whispers Radio.
Yeah,
That's
and
true.
Also,
Go big or
That's
go
true.
home.
also, I do have to say this just because Drew Maris will be on talking about 2012.
But we're going to have to ask him about what Giorgio's beliefs
Yeah,
were.
it would be interesting to see what happens. So.
All right, everybody. Until next week, don't be afraid. Only believe.